with what we're doing. A couple of things before I start is that if any time I start freezing or if there's any internet issues, please do stay on the call. Obviously, I'll try and sort this out as quick as possible and join the meeting. So please don't panic if there's any issues like that. Today, we're kind of just exploring what an Oxbridge interview is about. We're exploring what kinds of themes they touch on. It's kind of a multi-subject seminar. Still some people coming in. It's kind of a multi-subject seminar that we're going to just try and touch on some general themes about what each subject is about. My background is I'm a Cambridge geographer. I applied in 2021 and I graduated last year essentially. Sorry, just letting some more people in here. Okay. I think that's everyone. I'm just going to start. So yeah, I'm a Cambridge geographer. I graduated last year, and I kind of know the admissions system, especially for geography. But I've got a lot of friends that did other subjects as well. So I kind of have a general idea of how Oxbridge interviews work, and we're going to explore um, basically my thoughts around it and any questions you guys might have about what the Cambridge interview system. Well, I went to Cambridge, but the Oxbridge interview system in general works as. Okay. Um, okay, this is a WhatsApp code to join a WhatsApp group with a lot of information about Oxbridge from Study Mind. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to get that WhatsApp group joined. Give me a thumbs up if you've done it essentially, and I'll move on. Links in the group chat as well, the message chat on Zoom, so you can use that as well. Getting a few thumbs up. I'll wait a couple more minutes just so everyone has the opportunity. Okay, I can see lots of thumbs up. So last minute essentially. I think there's a code up there as well. I'm not really sure how to use this platform essentially, but I think the code means that you can. There's questions on in the later PowerPoint that you can answer if you want to use the code, but you can also use the Zoom meeting chat as well. Okay, I'm going to move on. I think that's enough time for you guys to have done that. Um, who are we? So obviously Oxbridge Mind. They provide advice, they provide tutors, they provide kind of online courses like this one to help you master the Oxbridge application. So how to get into Oxbridge. As we know, Oxbridge is really different to all the other universities, all the other Russell Groups ones, G20 essentially. It's very unique. The process is really, really unique, especially for different subjects. It's very, very unique. So it's important that you kind of know the process, you know what's going on, you know what you might be asked to do, especially like in an interview or a exam scenario. This is me. It's asking what my journey was through my interview experience. So I can kind of talk about what I was asked in my interviews, how it was. I applied to Girton College, Cambridge, essentially, and that's for geography. Um, I came on the day, I was very nervous. I wore a suit. Um, Came in and I was sat basically amongst everyone else in a meeting room that there was some of the third years there at the college. What they did was they would take you one by one. Obviously, you were different subjects. You'd be taken one by one, and you sit in this huge corridor, waiting to be called in. And once the other student had been done, you'd be called in. So I went in for my first interview. I had two interviews. Um, First one was physical geography. I was asked a lot of different A-level content materials. I was also asked some stuff about my personal statement. Um, they were really friendly. They tried to incorporate, obviously, things from my personal statement. They tried to calm my nerves down, and there was lots of very informal chat as well. So it wasn't as formal as I expected it to be. I was taken back, had a couple of hours of wait, so that was really, really nerve-wracking in that room. I then went again to my human geography interview. That was a bit more intense. The professors were a bit more, on you. They were asking me a lot of questions, and they asked me this really, really difficult question that I just want to share, and actually give you guys an opportunity of what your answers would be. So I'm just going to say the question, and if you can use the Zoom meeting chat to give me like a couple of lines of how you'd answer this question. Bearing in mind this is geography, but obviously even if you guys are different disciplines, you can still have a go. The question I was asked was, they gave me this rose. So it was a rose. It had a label on it. It said it was from Uganda. And the professor just said, explain social inequality using this rose. So can I give you a couple of minutes just to think about that and give me a couple of lines in chat? And we can read some of the best ones out. Give me a couple of lines in chat on what you guys think. So I have a couple of minutes there. So yeah, whenever you're ready, I think you can't see the next page. Can you guys see the page? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the next page? Okay, I'm getting a few thumbs up, but um, okay, great. So do you guys have any answers? Anyone brave enough to put it in the message chat? No? No one? Okay. My answer to this question, let's see. Okay. Just going to give you an opportunity there to finish that answer. Okay, some interesting stuff. So a rose would be people who are poor and would be picking it, and people who are rich would be receiving it. That's a very, very good answer. And I think that's similar answer to what I gave. Roses can grow everywhere, anywhere, sorry. Um, okay, interesting. Petals are all the same. Okay, another interesting answer. Um, Answer the geography of roses. Okay, that's fine. The stem could represent lower classes who bear the most weight and have the opportunity to society and most through the labor. Yeah, I mean, some of these answers are similar to kind of what I was, what I um, kind of gave my answer to. So my answer essentially to that question, which they said was very, they found very impressive, was that it's very similar to what I think Darren said, is that um, the people who are picking these petals, they're very, very poor classes. They're obviously picking this for very, very low wages. So wages are being paid to these people essentially. On the other hand, the person who owns this farm has his wealth. He's earning that money from each of the wages of these workers, essentially. So it kind of relates to this book I'd read recently, which was something, I think it's Thomas Piketty's Captain of the 21st Century. Sorry, non-geographers or economists. But the book was all about the idea that wage is always slower in growth than wealth. And hence the wealth was represented by the farm that the rose was growing, and the wages was represented by the people who were picking the roses. So I kind of used that scenario of a farm and where those roses were being grown. But yeah, some really good answers here. The outer petals, the working class, and the shield, the inner petals is the upper middle class. Absolutely. Again, you could use the actual rose as a metaphor itself as well. So there's different ways of approaching this. The question itself kind of I think is an interesting reminder on some of the ways that Cambridge wants you to think about things. So it's not about the answer you give necessarily, because there's no right or wrong answer to how a rose represents spatial inequality. No one cares if you give the right answer or not. There's no right answer to that question. It's all about your thought patterns. So how do you represent, how do you logically think about this question? Now, some of my engineering friends got a question which was like, how many golf balls can fit in a Boeing 747? No one's measured that. No one knows how much that is. But how can you logically work through steps to get to your answer? They're looking for good reasoning and thinking, and they're looking for basically someone who has that upper level of critical thinking. So whether that be maths with some form of equation that you've never done before, whether that's in economics where they give you a case study and you kind of have to apply your knowledge to that case study. In geography, it was obviously with this question, but it's really interesting the ways they try to test you and make you think about these subjects. Okay, let's next slide. Okay, we have a question here. What's one thing you are most excited or nervous about for your Oxbridge interview? So I'm going to give you another couple of minutes to answer that question. And let's see some of the responses. Okay, so there's a lot here, so let's read some of them essentially. Excited, chance to meet tutors and discuss super interesting topics. Absolutely. I think that's probably the best one I've seen so far, the one that I think is the best mindset to go in here. These are people who are experts, not per se in the whole subject, but these are experts in certain parts of your subject. So if it's maths, they'll be like experts in, I don't know, vectors or something. In geography, we have experts in economic geography. We've got experts in physical geography. These are people at the cutting edge of their field. It's actually, if you think about it, a great opportunity to talk to someone who's at the cutting edge of their field and understand more from them, understand their perspective, understand their opinions about certain topics. Climate change is a huge topic in geography, and to be honest, the world right now. Imagine having an opportunity to talk about one of the leading fellows in climate change and understanding what his opinion is on the matter. I think that's just a really, really great opportunity, and it will be something that's really, really it's rare to get essentially that you'll be talking to someone who's that of an expert in his field. So I think that's a really excellent way of thinking about going into your Oxbridge interview. It's just that it's Oxbridge super hyper ultra competition, the cream of the topmost cream. Yes, of course, Oxbridge is obviously competitive. It's that there's a reason why they're the number one and two ranked universities in the UK. I think. Um, and that is a fact that you kind of have to face, that there is lots of competition, but that shouldn't scare you. It should make you think. I believe that everyone has something unique within them. And I think that's something that you can explore in Oxbridge. If you have a unique knowledge in something, that's a perfect time to bring it out in your interview. It can really impress one of the professors. So I really like to see it as an opportunity more than like it being super nervous. And like I would always try to go in there like as a free hit. Like not many people get to experience the Oxbridge interview process. Why not enjoy it on the way rather than being really nervous about it, or really thinking like, what do the professors think? What do the tutors think? They have lots and lots of students. Unfortunately, they're not gonna think about you for long. So why don't you just give it your best shot, have the best go you have? There's a lot of some exciteds here. There's some nervous here, not being able to answer a question. This one I get a lot, which is that, I'm going to really panic if I don't know the answer to a question. Firstly, even if you do panic, the professors are people as well. They're not actually there to. People believe that they're there to trip you up. They're not there to trip you up. They're there to just see how far your knowledge goes. So, contrary to belief, the harder your interview it seems, the actual most of the time it means you've done really, really well, because it means you know the stuff so well that the professors have pushed you really hard to test your limits. Sometimes easy interviews are not the best thing because they're not testing your limits. They're not testing how far you know about the subject to kind of get a good understanding of who you are as a geographer or as a mathematician or something like that. So actually, rather than panicking if you don't know a question, I would actually celebrate. Say, that's actually them pushing me, and I would say it's a positive sign. Um, Fear of doing badly, again, we've discussed that. Super nerve-wracking. Excited to discuss interests and other topics with the professor. Again, I think that's the best way to kind of go about it. A couple more nervous of being asked some deep discussing questions. Being interviewed alone with only a few people. Yeah, that is one of the things that is daunting about the interview, is that you've got two professors sat in front of you and it's just you. So sometimes it can be daunting. One of the ways I think to get past that is maybe you can practice that a little bit. Maybe I know that your parents or your brother or sister or something isn't the same, you know them quite well, but it gets your psychological mind kind of trained for that two people against one kind of scenario. The idea that they're going to kind of grill you. And hopefully that will reduce your nerves in the actual interview. Because that's the best thing to do, I think. Have been not very nervous in the interview, giving it your best shot is, I think, the best way to go about the interview. Okay. Doing maths with experts, getting a hard question, not knowing an answer. Okay, I think I'm going to move on now. When can I expect to hear about my interviews? Not really sure about this question. When can I expect to hear about my interviews? If I understand this correctly, I think it's asking like, when will I know the outcome of my interview? And the answer is never. They will never discuss how well you did on the interview, how badly you did on the interview. That's just between you and them. They will write something down. This is the big misconception about Oxbridge, which is that, oh, interviews are everything. No, that's not true. The way Oxbridge admissions works is they kind of build a profile of you, especially subjects that have exams. That's another thing. So what they do is they kind of look at you as like a 6 or 7 divided piece of like a file. That includes your GCSEs, that includes your A levels, that includes the school you went to. It actually they look at data on how well you perform compared to your school. So if you go to a really bad school who's performing really badly and you perform really well, they actually factor that in. And they also factor in if you do really, really well, but your school does really well, they factor that in as well, because they're looking for people who are outperforming the environment that they're basically within. That's another factor. Another factor they look at is your actual interview, because obviously I write down how you've done, what your knowledge is like. Another factor is an exam you've sat. So you would have sat an exam, especially like for maths. I think the STEP. For geography, there used to be a geography admissions assessment. For economics, there's another exam. They'll look at that as well. And they'll put that all together, and that's your profile. That's what they look at for admissions. They don't just, even if you flop your interview, but you have the other four really, really well, that necessarily means you could get in as well. And if you do really, really well in the interview, but the others are not strong, that also doesn't guarantee you a spot at Oxford. So I actually think that increases the chances, especially for people who might be nervous who are applying from state school. That's something that's in your favor. They look at the sort of how you perform around basically your school. Now, don't take my word for this. This is what my director of studies said, who's one of the admissions officers at my college. She basically accepts the students that comes to the college, and she told me this in fact that she uses this data to influence the decisions. So this is not hearsay or anything. This is actual factual evidence that I've got from one of the admissions tutors. Okay, yeah, it would be interesting to see what you guys are applying for. Also, do you have any questions so far from what I've said? There are questions at the end, but if you've got any questions up until now, I'll give you a couple of minutes. Okay, I think there's not many other coming in, so I think I'm going to stop there. I think there's a question, and also another thing, which is that for med, have you guys applied for Oxford or Cambridge? So yeah, it would be interesting to see the split between Oxford and Cambridge applications. There's actually a difference between Oxford and Cambridge. Oxford tend to accept more. I think Oxford tend to accept more people that are interviewed, but less people are interviewed. So I think it's 70% of people are interviewed, and more are accepted from that interview pile. Cambridge accept more interviews, so that means they have like 80% of people who apply that are selected for interviews, but they accept less essentially from that interview pile. So you're more likely to get an interview from Cambridge, but you're less likely to be accepted after the interview. Oxford, you're less likely to get an interview, but you're more likely to be accepted after you've had an interview, essentially. Um, how do you prepare for the set tests for the course you want to apply for, i.e. amplitude tests? Okay, so I'm going to talk from my experience because obviously I applied for geography. Actually, geography doesn't have a test anymore. They got rid of it a couple of years ago. But when I applied, there was an exam. So the way I prepared for it was just really how I prepare for every exam, which is just past paper exams. So if you go on the website, most websites for Cambridge essentially, there's other websites as well, but the Cambridge website itself has lots of past papers. Now I'm not sure about maths, by the way. I know maths is something different. I know they have STEP, which is a little bit different. But for everyone else, the aptitude tests like TSA and things like that, thinking skills assessments, there's lots of papers available that you can go on and have a practice on. I think practice is the best way of mastering those papers. I don't think there's any syllabus or anything out there that you can actually look at and train for. It's just, a pure exam practice that can kind of help you. That's what I did. I just did pure exam practice. Anyone applying for psychology at Oxford? Okay, we've got a couple of Cambridge applicants for maths. Okay, we've got a Cambridge application for geography. I'll be interested to know what college you've applied for. Do past papers, questions repeat for maths. Yeah, so it seems like for maths, it's just past papers as well. Really, for any subject, it's just past papers. Especially if you've got a subject that does the TSA, the Thinking Skills Assessment. There's no syllabus for that. You just have to do past papers. It's like the spatial reasoning stuff and the other stuff. Okay, Murray Edwards, that's an excellent college to apply to. I have a couple of friends at Murray Edwards. Law, yeah. Okay, we've got Pembroke as well. Yeah, Pembroke's an excellent college as well. Um, Now, there's actually two schools of thought. It's probably not advantage telling you guys because you've already applied for your colleges, but I actually personally, I did some number crunching and I asked some of my maths friends. There actually seems to be a way that if you apply for certain colleges, it's easier to get into. So if people haven't applied, please apply for St. Catherine's. It seems like that's much easier to get into. And please avoid King's or Trinity. I'm talking Cambridge only because obviously I went to Cambridge. Please avoid King's and Trinity because they're obviously very, very popular colleges and it's very much more competitive. There's another school of thought that thinks that any college you apply to, you have the same chance. I don't subscribe to that. I actually think that the college you apply to is completely it actually has different chances of you getting in. So if you're desperate to get in, you can actually apply to really a college with better statistics. St. John's, really, really nice college, that great looking. Okay, I'm going to move on. What was to say? What are the interviews looking for? Academic excellence. It's not just knowledge, but how you apply it. Critical thinking, the ability to think logically and reason. I think I've already talked through most of this. Passion and curiosity, genuine interest in your subject, clear and structured response with logical reasoning. Yeah, I think I've covered most of this already. So they're looking for knowledge, but they're also looking beyond knowledge because like a lot of knowledge is not just regurgitation of information. That's not knowledge. That's just, your ability to memorize. Memory isn't an indicator of intelligence. It's critical thinking. How can you manipulate that knowledge? How can you kind of add it to different scenarios? That's what critical thinking is. How can you use your knowledge to answer complex scenarios? That's what they're looking for, essentially. The other thing they're looking for is the uniqueness of Cambridge and Oxford is the system called supervisions. Can I get in chat? Does anyone know what a supervision is? Because I don't want to waste my time talking about it if you guys already know what it is. Yeah, okay. So you kind of have an idea. It's a small group that tends to be, it depends on the day or depends on the topic you kind of do. Medicine, it's different. They normally have like a group of 5 or 6. For all your other subjects, it's normally 2 people per supervision. What you do, you get a task, you sign up for these, obviously on your own. You get a task beforehand. So for me, I had to write essays. For others, it might be different. You get a professor who's doing your lecture. So the person who's actually giving your lecture is the person who's in your supervision. You give him the essay, he marks your essay, and you get feedback on your essay. So my actual exam was obviously essays. That's different from maths. Maths, you get loads of problems that they'll mark and give you answers to. And obviously it's different for all other subjects. But the thing with the supervisions is that you get to ask your professor, the person who's lecturing, any questions you have. That's what's so unique. And it's not like you ask the professor like, oh, what is urbanization? And he tells you the answer. It's kind of like your interview. It's kind of like a debate that's happening. It's like you go back and forth, you debate subjects, you talk about subjects, you create these really, really nice debates about certain topics. And it kind of is similar to the interview process. So I actually think that they're also looking for someone who will perform really, really well in supervisions in your interview. So that's the supervision stuff. I don't think there's anything else. Oh, there's a chat here. How do supervisions work with medicine in comparison to other subjects? Obviously, I didn't do medicine. I did geography, but from my friends' understanding and the stuff they did, you just have a lot more supervisions because medicine's just like really hard, a subject in general. So you just have lots more supervisions and they're bigger grouped. So I had like one supervision per week, and it was like one essay to do. And I would have another person with me, normally my friend who I would sign up with, and we'd go to the professor, and it would just be one and two. With medicine, it's obviously you have a lot more content to cover. So you just have up to 3 to 4 supervisions in the week. They can be weekends as well. So I never had supervision on a weekend. That's just not something geography does. But medicine does do supervisions on a weekend. So it's just their supervision structure is a bit different. It's a lot more intense than humanity subjects, or maths, or I think any other subject really. Is that okay? Okay. Okay. Uh, Anyone else have any questions? Okay, I don't think so. All right, let's move on. Example question: what book has had the most influence on your thinking? Okay, yeah, have a go at that question. This is quite a broad question. There's not probably a realistic question to come up in your interview. Your interview questions will be quite direct. They'll be much more relevant. They would never ask a broad question like this. So if I were to change this question, it would be like asking about a specific book you've written in your personal statement. So I wrote about capital in the 21st century. It would be what did you learn about from the capital in the 21st century that helped you have a better understanding of geography? So the interview questions are a lot more targeted, but can you guys just obviously make this a bit more targeted to your own subject? And yeah, have a go at writing it. I've heard people applying for medicine being asked about physics in the interview when they do it as an A level, which I do. Is this likely? Um, um, Personally, obviously, I personally wouldn't really know about that. If I apply that to geography, would they ask about something that I did for A levels? No, not specifically. They would just ask about geography itself as a subject. So they would expect me to do my due diligence on all of geography, read upon what the news is like, read upon any interesting stuff in what's happening in geography literature, and they would only ask me about that stuff. So sorry, I can't give you an exact answer to that. Maybe next week I can, if I can ask a couple of my friends. But for me, I think it's just that the actual subject itself that can be asked. Sorry, but I just thought of another question. Do you know how supervisions in Cambridge compare to case-based learning? I read to engineers, human for engineering, and has really influenced my concept of engineering as on a science or STEM subject. Okay, oh, that's the answer to the question. For your question, Ibrahim, can you explain what's case-based learning? I assume it's like I've not really heard of that before. So if you can explain that to me, I can probably give you a better answer. Um, okay. Yeah, if you have any questions, keep dropping them in chat. I don't think anyone's doing the task, so I'm going to move on. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We're getting some responses in now, a little bit. Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. What happens on the day? I think I've already explained it to you guys. I think most of you guys here are, there's some questions here, but I'll answer them a little bit later, because I just want to get through the slides first. What happens on the day? I think I've already explained that a little bit about the corridor stuff and how you're given a room and you're taken to all these rooms. And your interviews are kind of just sat there and you come in and you sit down and then they start basically asking you some questions. The only difference is if you're an international student who can't make it to the UK, then you get an online interview, which is, I think, a lot easier. Online interviews are a lot easier, from what I've heard from international friends. But I think in the UK, they're still in person, and you come in, you get taken into an admissions room, and then you'll get directed to your room. and then you have your two professors sat inside of it, and you get taken in, and you sit on this. I sat on a sofa. It's quite comfortable, and yeah, your heart's pounding, and then you just get on with it. Basically, they start the questions. Let's say example questions for different subjects. Okay, yeah. So here's some example questions for different subjects. So here's medicine. How do you think healthcare systems? Yeah, so these are much more similar to the questions like they would ask. Explain how body regulates blood pressure. So that's an example of like maybe a more targeted question to check if you know stuff. And how do you think of medical care systems could be improved globally is more of a critical thinking stuff. Like this is not something that you'd be expected to answer in like an A-level question. Well, I hope not. But this is more of a question, like a general question to make you create an answer and show your critical thinking, essentially. Okay, I'll leave that here if people want to copy that down or anything. While that's happening, I can answer some questions. It's a teaching method used in Cardiff Uni, not sure about how other unis, but similar to how you describe the supervisions where med students discuss a patient case and how they would approach it, and the professor or facilitator gives them feedback on their approach. Okay, my best friend is medicine, so I know a little bit about how medicine works. So I think uh, I'm not sure, it's like OSCE exams or something where you kind of have like case studies and like patients and stuff to talk to essentially. I think those are like you obviously interact with your professor and in a Zoom call or in person and you talk through, and they happen quite multiple things to prepare for OSCEs. I think there's another one in Cambridge. The special thing about medicine in Cambridge, it's a year longer, by the way, but it's also that you do separate exams to the actual medical exam board. I think I'm not sure if the GMC is the one you guys do the exam boards to or your exams to get your medical license. But wherever you do your medical license exam, there's a separate exam that Cambridge give you for their internal kind of exam prep. That's an essay. I'm not sure what content goes into that essay, but it's an essay. And you kind of get ranked in the year. So like the best performing Cambridge examiner gets ranked to the top. Everyone can see this. And the worst performing goes at the bottom. So like they kind of have their own system in place. And then they also have like the official one, the one that like the GMC probably look at. If that helps to answer your question. Sorry, what was your question? Let me just check that. Do you know how supervision is in Cambridge? Yeah, so that's kind of what I said. I think for OSCE preparation, they're different. And for the actual other preparation, I think the other exams are multiple choice. So obviously that's going to be different preparation to like an OSCE. Do you know any good practice question resources? The Cambridge website, just go to wherever you're applying and go on their department. So, for example, the geography department, go to Department of Geography, Cambridge University. If you're applying to Oxford, go to Oxford. There'll be at least 4 years worth of past papers on there, and you can just obviously do those papers, and that will help you guys get better sufficiency at those papers. How long is the interview? Mine was 20 to 20-ish minutes long, both, so 40 minutes in total. So I had two interviews, so there were 40 minutes in total, two 20-minute interviews. If you apply from another country whose education system is 1 year below UK, where you start school 1 year later, so you would be 1 year older than UK students at university application time, is that a disadvantage? I guess so. I guess if you apply 1 year younger, then that's a disadvantage. If you apply 1 year older, then that's an advantage. I'm not sure about the international education systems and the differences between them. I can only really speak about the UK, so sorry if I didn't really answer your question. I think the only thing I know about international students is that you guys actually get to apply, I think, online if you can't get to the university, which is, I think, an advantage because you don't have all the fear and struggles of actually being an interview and being interviewed. I think the online interviews are just a lot easier. If you apply for Oxford the first year and don't get in and you apply next year for Cambridge, would that be considered a disadvantage that you didn't get in on the previous try? They won't know. Cambridge don't know that you applied for Oxford. To be honest, if you applied for Oxford for a different college, they probably wouldn't even know either. So there's many people who try like 3 or 4 times to try to get into Oxford or Cambridge. So you actually don't even have to switch Oxford and Cambridge. You can just switch colleges. Okay, keep the questions flowing. I'm going to keep the PowerPoint flowing. Here's law, so you guys can have a look at the law questions. Do you think there was always just why or why not? Things like that. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to get that down. How would you prepare the article that they give you in Cambridge interview? Um, I assume you're talking about the reading material they give you before your interview. Um, how would you prepare for that? Go on Google Scholar, type in any subject, maybe I would say like your weakest sub-subject. So for me, in geography, I hate glaciers. So I would just go on Google Scholar, Google glaciers, and read the first like article that comes up, because that's the type of articles they'll give you. It'll be quite difficult to read. It'll be academic articles. So practice your reading of academic articles. So go on Google Scholar, just Google like a random article that you find difficult, and try to have a read of it. You realize it's very different to the way normal people write. Academics write really badly, and academics also use really, really big words. So it's a different skill in itself to understand academic writing. Um, I got something given about like species. So it was like this many birds were extinct, and the question I got in my interviews were like, oh, how would you save these birds in the event of an extinction? And then we talked about climate change for the rest of the interview, essentially. Yeah, so keep the questions coming in. That's the law questions. Engineering, here you go. So you guys can copy down those questions if you want. I'll give you a couple of minutes here to copy those down. Okay, kind of move on to physics. There you are. I've got some physics questions here. I would say like you guys can have a go and chat, but I would have no clue whatever's being written, so I don't think that's worth it. But you can just write these down and have a go in your own time. Maybe get some of your family members or one of your friends to ask you these questions in like an interview way. Um, yeah, I mean, there's some good ways to prepare for interviews. Also, can I get like who's got the interview dates, or who's kind of yeah, who's got their interview dates, and what are they? What dates have you guys got? So before interviews, I would say like the best way to prepare is like either getting someone to ask you questions, or there's stuff online like Oxbridge Mind do it, and other companies do it, where you have someone like me who's just going to test you and pretend to be an examiner, so you kind of have a experience of what it feels like. I would recommend like doing some of them. Um, is this session going to be available? Yes, it is. I'm not sure if it's recorded on YouTube, but it's going to be available, I think. Um, I have the Target Oxbridge interview this Thursday. I'm assuming Target's like a different. I'm not sure what Target means, but you have your actual Oxbridge interview this Thursday. Okay. The people who've said they haven't heard back, I wouldn't be too nervous, because they do some colleges take their time in providing dates for interviews. Some colleges are very, very quick. I would the point I would get worried essentially is probably like, end of December, because what happens is at the end of December they have something called a winter pool, which is that these are people who get interviewed twice. So these are people who are probably good enough to get into Oxbridge, but can't get into a certain college because it's full and got lots of applicants. So what happens is other colleges come in and say, we want to try and take you. So you get a second interview basically. So if you've not heard back by this late December, that's probably, yeah, you probably won't be hearing back. but I wouldn't be worried if you haven't heard back yet till late December. I also wouldn't be surprised if some of you get a second interview essentially. So if you apply to very competitive colleges, you might get a second interview where they want to see you again and test you out because it's a new college, so there'll be new professors. Um, okay, what's this? So this is what I was talking about, like Oxbridge interviews. So you guys can use this. I do geography and land economy. So if any geographers or land economists want some interview prep, I'm also available for that. And obviously, if you want to, you can definitely. I think there's an offer, yeah, 50%. So definitely take that up if you even if you don't want to do a lot of sessions, 50%. That's pretty cool of them to give you 50% off. So yeah, I think there's more stuff here. Addressing subject-specific knowledge, I think I've already addressed it. I think we'll just go to questions now because there's 10 minutes left. No, that's not a realistic question. Have you any real models in your life? That's not a realistic question. It'll be much more specific. Okay, I'm just going to leave that here. Okay, so we only actually have 5 minutes for questions. So if you guys have questions, put them in now because we've got 5 more minutes left for me answering questions. And then obviously I'm gonna ask for you guys' feedback on this session for the last 5 minutes. So I need if you have any questions, ask them in this last 5 minutes. Okay, so we have a couple of people. 17th, yeah, okay. 9th. What is clearing? Okay, so this is a question. Clearing is kind of about it's not specific to Oxbridge essentially. I think Oxbridge has clearing now. I've not read up on this, so probably having a Google is probably better. What I know currently is that clearing is just a way you can get into universities if you've missed your grades essentially. So if you were given an A-star AA offer for Cambridge and you got AAA, um, you will miss your offer for Cambridge. And what you can do is apply for other universities that have spots available. So that's what I understand is clearing. I actually do think Cambridge has clearing now because I think I read it in the news. I should do more research about it. I think the next seminar is also free. So if you're around, I'll do some research for you and I can give you a clearer answer next seminar. Did you get external mock interviews as part of your preparation? Yeah, I had. So my school sorted it out for me. But in hindsight, I probably would have done like one or two with Study Mind, like with like someone, a tutor that I think was like capable of giving me realistic questions and realistic advice. Um, so what they did, they were ex-Oxbridge students. They came into my school and we kind of did lots of interview prep. I think 5 hours together in person. So that was really, really cool to kind of get an understanding of what the interview was like. Because before that, I had no clue the pressure, what they would ask, and things like that. But after that preparation, I kind of could understand what it was like to be in an interview, and it helped me out. I think it definitely helped me out in my interviews. Will they ask you about an EPQ if you did one? Okay, they don't care about EPQ per se, like if you did an EPQ or not, that doesn't affect your chances of getting in. But the EPQ, if it's done on an interesting topic, will definitely be asked about. If you did an EPQ on like climate change, sustainability, and a solution, they're going to ask about that most definitely from your personal statement. In general, no, they won't just bring up your EPQ randomly. They don't care about your EPQ. Roughly what proportion of questions asked in the interview are about your personal statement? Depends on your interviewer. I got like, I'd say like 10% of my questions, like it was just at the start, very beginning, where I was asked a little bit about my personal statement. They didn't really care about my personal statement, but that might be different for someone else. And I also believe my personal statement wasn't very strong. In hindsight, it had spelling errors inside of it. So actually, I think they just kind of ignored my personal statement because they didn't think it was that good. Those Cambridge lower required goods if you've done EPQ, as I mentioned, they don't care at all about an EPQ. EPQ means nothing unless you do like something that's very, very interesting. The only thing an EPQ is good for is exploring something that's like relevant to your subject. So if like climate change for geography is like really relevant. If you did an EPQ on like climate change and you met with professors and you did proper research, that's the only thing they'll care about. And you have to put it in your personal statement. They won't like look at your EPQ per se. Um, I think there's like an extended, you get two things. You get like your personal statement and you get like an extended written letter that you can send to them as well. So you can use that to talk about your EPQ a little bit more. If you're applying from within the UK, will the interview be online at your school, college, or will you have to physically travel to Cambridge or Oxford? You will have, I believe you have to physically travel unless you have like certain exemptions, or it depends on your college as well. Like if some colleges might want all the applicants interviewed in person, some of them might be online. I believe they'll give you a place to stay as well, and they'll pay for all the accommodation and stuff and travel. So don't worry about that if you fall into like a low socioeconomic background. Depends on college usually, yeah. So I agree with that. Do you know where to find more prompt interview questions? ChatGPT, just tell it a good prompt and it'll give you some really good interview questions. Um, Tutors like me and some of my colleagues at Study Mind, we come up with like realistic ones because we obviously know the people who actually ask the questions. Like the person who does the geography admissions, I know really personally. I know the questions he asks and stuff, so I can give you more realistic questions. What grades did you get? Me, I got two A stars and an A in geography, economics, and maths. I didn't do an EPQ. Yeah, Will Cambridge also asked for the typical. My typical offer was A star AA, so my offer was for an A star in anything really. Will Cambridge also ask for the typical offer listed on the website? Could it be higher? Never seen it higher. I don't. The offer actually, they don't really care about the offer. If you've done really well in interview, if they've given you an offer, they believe you should be there, and they'll give you like the minimum offer. So like I've seen people get like AAA as their offer, which is like that's like a really low grade, but that means they vetted you so well, you did so well in the interview that they think like, even if this guy gets AAA, that doesn't matter because he has the potential to like do really well in the Cambridge course. Okay. Final question. Anyone have a final question before we finish basically up? No? No final questions? How do we get the session? What do you mean by that? Can you, Darren, you can have the last question. Can you just make that a little bit clearer? I'm not sure how do we get the session thing. How is life in Cambridge? It is very demanding, the workload. Yeah, the honest answer is yeah, it is demanding. It's one of the best universities in the world, so workload is going to be demanding. Depends on the subject as well. Medicine, maths, all these subjects are going to be much more workload intensive. Geography, less so, but every subject is very, very intense, very, very high workload because it is Oxbridge at the end of the day. The recordings, Darren, I don't know. I have no clue where this recording is going to be. Um, I think Study Mind will give you a bit of might give you a thing. Did I enjoy Cambridge? I loved it. The amount of societies there were, the amount of big speakers. The Cambridge Union was my favorite part. Like Elon Musk, I think, came at one point. There was like Jeff Bezos came. I think Eliud Kipchoge came. Robert De Niro came. There was like heads of state coming. It was really, really cool to like see these people, mingle with these people. I actually became friends with Boris Johnson's son for a little while, which was really, really interesting. So like you get opportunities that you wouldn't get elsewhere, essentially when you go to Oxbridge. Okay, no more questions. Basically that ends the seminar. I think they are recording it, but I'm not sure how you get access to it. There is going to be, I think, a recording next week as well. I think I will be taking the seminar as well. So if you have any other questions, bring that there. Um, can you guys give feedback on the sessions? I've been asked to ask you guys for feedback, so you can write feedback. Be honest. So I can go off the board if you guys want, and you can just give me feedback in your time. Um, what should I wear on the day? Just wear a suit or something professional. Again, scan. Oh, one more thing is if you guys, so I've been told if you guys want the free hour, so one of the students we pick for a free one-to-one with one of the tutors, um, hopefully me. If you guys comment on the chat like something like 1 free hour, the Study Mind admin can look through the chat and then pick one of you to win. So if you want to be in the opportunity of winning the free hour, then just write free hour, and the admin will pick someone at random to give the free hour to. Okay. Yeah, so I will leave you a couple of minutes to write feedback, and then we will end the seminar here. Okay, so thank you everyone for obviously coming, and yeah, I think hopefully I've given you guys a lot of things to think about, a lot of things to learn from. Yeah, so yeah, please leave some feedback for me so I can make these sessions better in the future. Last question, what is free hour? Basically, if you put free hour in the chat, they'll pick one guy at random to give a free hour to. So one to one like mock interview session or knowledge building session, whatever the student wants. Okay, so you got 1 more minute to put free hour, and then I'll end the meeting.